for, yeah. So, probably need a motion.
It's good. I mean, there was, you know, a lot of support initially. There's a lot of people that are known in town or were known. You know, I mean, it's been years, but that's a good idea to update and show involvement.
I'll tell my wife you said so. she had the idea, you know, a cup of coffee first thing in the morning.
Well,
I'd like to make a motion to move this onto full council with the legislation changes that Mr. Palmer drafts.
we have a motion from Dr. Fellner.
I'll second that.
We have a second from Ms. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Mr. Palmer, if you would be so kind.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on this then? No, let's go ahead and move on to the next. Annexation of Powers Reservoir.
Mike, I think I can do this in relatively short order and keep it simple. In the process of selecting a consultant to help us with the ODNR improvements, that includes some things at all three reservoirs. The main thing at Powers is the slope. We're going to have to do something to soften that slope. So in the process of doing an inundation study and identifying what we're going to begin to need to do to get those improvements made, it came to my attention, I guess for the first time, that Powers Reservoir is in the township. And so it seemed to me as a small but logical first step would be to go ahead and annex that in. So Matt did some work initially and had talked with Thomas three times. And then as late as today, I think it was, the idea of an annexation that he can explain, I guess, fourth form of annexation that can shortcut the process and requires commissioner approval. So
that's right. There is a fourth kind of, as the mayor just said, a fourth kind of annexation that only can occur when a municipality annexes, and in this case, the municipality is the sole owner of the two parcels that actually comprise Powers. And if it's done that way, there is an expense involved in creating a plat, you know, that you have to submit with it. But other than that, the commissioners have no ability to say no, and the township has no ability to say no. It's a done deal right when you file it. So that's what the proposal is.
And this won't involve, I'm sorry.
Is it a real big cost?
Oh, the mayor's office does it all the time for various.
no, to answer your question, no. The only thing that I would want to make sure folks were aware of, and you can check this, go home and look on Robin Sheets's property map, is that some of the adjoining property, it's likely when they do the survey that we're going to find out that some of the adjoining properties are in part on the city property. So you don't know where that's going to come from. I really believe we need to do it anyways. As you start to flatten the slope, there's a couple of pieces of property that are just using your naked eye, you can visualize will be in that slope. So that you may hear a repercussion from a township resident about that, and so I just wanted to fully transparent. Whatever people choose to have that mean, but I think in the spirit of being upfront about it, if you can identify the person that you may hear from.
Is the sloping going to be affect the structure, or is it strictly his property?
No, there's a structure that appears to be on our property.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, and we may be acquiring property to flatten the slope out. We haven't done that survey work.
Okay.
That's where we'll be paying big bucks to the engineering firm to help design or engineer that part of it. So, anyways, that's another kind of simple one. I wouldn't call it a no-brainer. There may be just that one pushback at the toe of the slope. So, anyway.
Well, I think that considering it's the water supply for the city, it probably should be in the city limits in that regard for various reasons. So,
I would agree with that, but this is this is not the resurrection of how to get amens and amics inside the city.
no.
So
I wasn't going
down
here.
this.
I wasn't going.
We're not doing that, and
No, but this is, like you just said, Mayor, it's a no-brainer. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, it's on Railroad Street next to the.
yeah. So, anyways, in the upcoming committee meeting in the utilities, we'll probably talk about whether or not that substation there on Railroad Street, which is probably also, a hazard area if you had any kind of catastrophic thing happen at the res, that would get wiped out. So, not tonight, though. Mercy on you.
Is there anything we need to do?
No, we'll be authorizing the plat to be drawn, and then probably coming here, it's not a planning or zoning, probably show up. We may run it by just maybe September, early September, but I'd see it coming through council about then.
Okay.
So we don't have to move forward with any motion, I'm assuming.
No,
But I do have a question.
Yeah.
And this is gonna get way ahead of this.
Mhm.
How you can flatten the slope? Add dirt?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that's the only logical way.
185 semi-loads or so.
Oh,
How many?
185.
I think that, I would have guessed far more than that.
Yeah. Well, originally,
We'll see.
the thought was to try to lower the rim, so to speak,
I'm not gonna,
which would affect capacity, that was the only thing about that.
Yeah,
that
and
was,
it still wouldn't affect the slope. That, I mean, you'd have to lower it
yeah.
A lot.
a lot, make it a puddle.
That's true.
Will it be as fun to sled down?
Okay.
So will it be as fun to sled down?
Negative.
No.
No, it won't.
That's a
That's
problem.
gonna be another park project, though. We can
Yeah,
use
we can
the other
bring in like a
185.
temporary pitcher's mound, and bring in a temporary slope, so. No, it won't be as fun.
Generations of kids will never know now. Running into that fence at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on that
That's
then?
it.
Okay, members, anybody? Okay, well then let's move on to fireworks. Brought this up because it was been brought up by one of the members of this council at a council meeting. Obviously, we've had a couple of members of the police department here, head honcho, so to speak, and but it revolves around our discussion before because the state changed its, I guess the term would be softened its position on certain fireworks, and that happened just prior to the 4th of July. And subsequently, people utilized that. So the question, I guess, comes up is, do we want to go back to, or draft an ordinance to go back to a prior position that the state had concerning fireworks, or do we want to continue the way we have currently. And then I'm just gonna open it up to anybody that would like to make a statement, comment, direction.
Were there any additional complaints, or what did you guys notice in terms of, so the council member that Mike was referring to lives over, anyway, in her neighborhood, she felt like it was a problem. There were, more so than in years past. Ms. Ziegler, I believe, was at the park during fireworks, and there was an excessive amount of dangerous behavior, I mean, as she characterized it. So, is that true? Is it the same as in years past, or was there an escalation in the ordinance that they're allowing?
We had 2 actual complaints on file around the 4th there. Most of everybody did phone calls concerning what the ordinance is or what the questions are, but I think it's one half dozen of the other, whether it's illegal or not, whether people are still going to send them off anyway. It's just a matter of if the county's going to join in to allow people to do that around the holidays, or if they're going to get it all together. I mean, it's still not going to stop people from doing it. We're going to take enforcement action, so you're never going to completely do it. Same thing as at the end of the day. Murder's illegal, but people still do it anyway. So I mean, we're gonna have to understand that, right? But it's yeah. We didn't have an excessive amount of calls or any complaints. So,
Okay.
no
more than you
past. Yeah.
We had 2 that was called in as complaints. Both of them after the allotted time that was set by the statute. So one was at 10:30, the other one was closer, I think, to 11.
Yeah, they're both after the time. But I mean, that could have been because it was legal and they were fielded through phone calls to dispatch. Dispatch said, hey, they're legal up to 10 o'clock. So if there was any type of complaints, it might have been before the 10 o'clock hour, and they were allowed. So maybe we wouldn't have generated a call at that point. We wasn't tracking them at that point. So anything after that 10 o'clock would have been the two calls that we did have. So
The majority, like Lieutenant Warren said, were inquisitive calls. What does the statute allow? What time does it start? That type of stuff.
yeah. So nothing typically scale.
Okay.
Question I had.
I think I said it every time I could that I don't, I think that we should go back to the way it was. I understand the reasoning and logic of even if it's not allowed, people will still do it, but I don't know. I know that we got a few emails from people, or 1 or 2 that Julie forwarded in regards to dogs and veterans and PTSD and just general danger. So I think, for the peace of the community, I don't think it's a bad thing to go back to it, but I know every time we get here, we circle back to the enforcement and, you can buy them, so how are we going to keep people from doing it? I don't know. So I think it's just either time to stop talking about it or do something about it. And we've been talking, like every month, it seems like since May, we've been talking, or maybe June, that we've discussed it, I don't know. So I think we've all heard that some people enjoy it and like to shoot them off, and some people don't like it.
That's also another point to note, just real quick. One of the 2 calls that we did receive, the complaint was that a firework had landed on the house. So obviously we couldn't substantiate that, and that's probably run into is the differentiation between what's a 1.3G firework versus 1.4G. Typically, you can tell the difference when it's a large aerial firework with a big boom up in the sky and I don't know, kind of like sparks went out or whatever, but by the time you see that and you hear the boom, you can't figure out where it came from.
Yeah.
Right.
Bottle rockets, you're not going to figure out where those come from. Those are the commercial or consumer grade ones. Again, it's trying to determine where did it come from. You run into issues with the property line of 150 feet. It's kind of hard to enforce it if you don't know where the property line starts at or ends.
And I mean, that's what I saw, because I live on Cherry Street, so there's houses everywhere, and there were definitely ones going off in the sky. And I didn't know where they were coming from. I could see where they were coming from some of the people shooting them off in the streets. But like by the time you call and you guys come out and you say stop it, I mean.
And there's no enforcement
So, no, I-
taking place because you didn't see them set them off.
Right.
So unless you have maybe somebody who witnessed it that's willing to give a written statement and go to court and testify as a witness to it for a misdemeanor charge.
Well, to that point, Chief, too, is and I do understand about the noise itself affecting animals as well as people and everything else, but the sad part about it is that while there's no way to legislate common sense to people, and you know, I mean, just like the chief said, by the time those things go off and the officer has the opportunity to get there, they could be long gone. They could be, if they're not being actually witnessed, then it's kind of mute. So the question is, my only thing is, I think that while I sympathize with everybody that has the noise issue, because my daughter has cats and they went bonkers this time. But then again, this is an opportunity for folks to be able to do something that has been illegal. Technically, they've probably been doing it illegally anyway, and now it's legal. I know that sounds maybe a little back and forth, but the bottom line is, I think that if there's some way to take, and if we would step it back and we would create an ordinance that said this, I'm not sure if that would really solve the problem. Because you still have, while Galleon is here, the subsequent areas around Galleon will have the state laws in effect technically. So that's another precept that people are going to be, again, they're going to buy them legally out there. They're going to bring them in. Some of them may not even realize, visitors or whatever, they may not realize that Galleon is not legal for that. And so I think that's heading down a path that we might not want to do. My thought was that maybe we need to see how a little bit further down the road to see how this actually plays out over a little more time period. 4th of July is, that change happened, 4th of July happened. I mean, like bang bang. You know, no pun intended. But again, if there is more of a, in my opinion, if there's more of a chronic situation, maybe that's when we need to look at it. The law allows that we can address this at any given time in the future.
It does. The only thing if I could just
No,
share
go ahead.
one observation, and I talked to the prosecutor, a little bit about it, just in general. The only thing that I was telling the chief about this earlier, the only thing I can see that, not the only thing, but having some control over this, if there was a return to the way it was, right now, if they're called out to a situation, they have to make an evaluation that involves distance and involves people. Is there anyone under the age of 18? You have to have the property owner's written permission of the property owner on which you're doing this. The one thing that it would provide some clarity is if we did go back to where it's not allowed at all, they don't have to ask those questions. If there's someone out there with bottle rockets, bang, it's wrong. That's simple. It's from an enforcement point of view, from the court's point of view. It just provides some clarity in enforcement, but I just wanted to share that observation.
I am in total agreement with Kara. I think that walking back the ordinance, just because people are going to do it anyway, is not a reason to not walk it back, to throw our hands up. I mean, enforcement's going to be the same, but as time goes on, if it's understood Okay, so next event that they're allowed to do it is,
Probably Labor Day.
okay. So, we're going to probably take a wait and see approach anyway, because Labor Day's racing down the track at us. But overall, I'm absolutely in agreement. Where I live, the church property, I'm sure that, they didn't get permission to do it. And I think enforcement's not the issue. We gotta draw the line in the sand and then let it play out as people understand, oh, we're not allowed to do that. I think it's some severe, I think it's an escalation in potential damage. And that's why you create laws. You don't wait for, I think it's ridiculous to wait for injuries to have a knee-jerk reaction to try and make a law. This freedom, I get to do whatever I want regardless of my neighbor. That is the way things are now, and I'm in favor of walking this thing all the way back. So I'm not going to be on wishy-washy on the fence. I don't see both sides. So anyway,
In walking them back, I'm looking past you, not looking at the law director. We can outlaw them, can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the simple possession of these things, then it's not a question unless they get there at the absolute wrong time when they shut off the last fireworks. There's usually, when somebody's doing this, there's either a rack or some sort of setup, and you're going to see the unlaunched rockets, at which point it's not an enforcement issue of, well, that wasn't us, it was that guy. No, man, you're possessing this.
good point.
I don't want to. The obvious analogy comes to my mind would be a drug analogy. Possessing it and using it. You don't have to be using it to be arrested for it. So if you possess you got the rockets, bad day for you. If you want, if we're allowed to walk it back to that, then
I absolutely.
yeah, I think you probably got the
absolutely
votes.
see your point.
I think you got the votes, and that
don't
makes it
think-
easy. You don't have to argue with the neighbors. It's like you've got something you're not allowed to have. Thank you very much.
That's pretty black and white.
Can we?
Well, I don't know right now.
That would be
I know
the-
you can certainly outlaw use.
Right. Well, can we find out whether
Oh,
we
yeah,
can make
that's
it?
gonna be
Because I
simple,
think
yeah.
that's the best way to adjust or correct the thinking in Columbus.
Okay.
And I'll repeat it. Obviously, nothing's going to happen for the next legal, display. But I don't want to let it go.
Right.
I'm in favor of not letting it go. So
No, I'm not.
the idea.
Again, I do see both sides because I also see while people that go out and shoot them have obviously abused them, but there's also people that might be using them legally and in the proper context, and so they need to be listened to also in the sense of both sides of the story. I think that the state's approach to it, I think it was very poorly put together, in my opinion, from the enforcement part of it. But again, I think there also is the fact that under people that are, for lack of a better term, common sense, why are they going to be penalized for the folks that don't use common sense or that don't do it illegally? Because there is, it's not like it's
That's
it's
how we
carte
get
blanche.
penalized anyway.
What's
The
that?
law-abiding citizens always get penalized for the people that don't. That's
I know.
the majority of the ordinances that we have, state, city, country, come about because of the minority, and the law affects the majority. I mean, that's
true.
I wish that it didn't, but that's the way it is.
But again, I'm in the part of looking at, and I'm not just sitting back, but I'm looking at both sides. I do agree with the mayor that maybe that would be the best approach, to say, okay, this is what this is, whatever that is. By legal description is not allowed galleon. Right there. Okay, that way enforcement wise, these gentlemen can walk up to a person that's shooting off rockets, or even have it in their possession, car, vehicle, whatever, and say, okay, you're not allowed to have this. You attracted attention of maybe the neighbor for whatever reason. They're there, they see that, and they say, you're not, it's illegal. That is definitely an approach. Well, that way they don't have to actually witness the actual function of the rocket going off and stuff.
Yeah, so the issue then would be the statute, not to get into a charter discussion. If it was a charter, we could clearly have the authority to do that. What I want to make sure is we have the authority of the statute to revert back to the...
We certainly have the authority under the statute to revert back to a non-use situation. The whole question about possession is, I don't know.
Okay.
And when the Ohio General Assembly puts language in that authorizes cities to do that, you don't need to have a charter. You still can do it.
Well, good.
So I would say, Mr. Palmer, if you would so look into that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And we'll bring this topic up at our next meeting, which will be next month.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
And so, anything else on fireworks? Nope. Okay. So, anything else for tonight? Any other business? Anyone? No? Okay. Next meeting is September 6th, 7 o'clock here, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
If it's all made the motion, Dr. Feldner second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
37.
Were we all on Facebook?
Type it away, huh?